For days before the reported end of her life, Dolly Parton was described as finally opening up about something she had kept largely private. Her words were simple. She had been dealing with health problems that she had not given enough attention to while caring for her husband, Carl Dean. That statement carries enormous emotional weight when viewed against Dolly's extraordinary life and career. She rose from a small two-room cabin in the Smoky Mountains to become one of the most recognizable figures in American music. She wrote and recorded "I Will Always Love You," a song that later reached another level of worldwide fame through Whitney Houston. She also became known for her generosity, including a major donation that helped support vaccine research. For decades, Dolly maintained an image of warmth, humor, energy, and resilience, rarely allowing the public to see how much pressure she was carrying privately. According to the supplied story, the warning signs began appearing during the final year of Carl Dean's life. Her public appearances became less frequent, plans were postponed, and important celebrations were missed. In September 2025, she reportedly announced that her Las Vegas residency would be postponed because she was facing several health challenges and needed medical procedures. Rather than explaining the details, she kept her statement brief and reassuring. The story suggests that while the public heard only a few carefully chosen words, Dolly was actually dealing with the emotional and physical demands of caring for Carl as he lived with Alzheimer's disease. Her attention was focused on him, and her own well-being gradually moved into the background. The story then describes a series of moments that made people wonder whether something more serious was happening. In October 2025, Dolly's sister Frida reportedly asked fans to pray for Dolly. The request created concern among supporters, but Dolly answered in her familiar humorous style, telling people that she was not dead yet. Her response brought laughter and relief, but it did not necessarily explain what had caused her sister to become concerned. Then came January 2026, when Dolly reportedly turned 80, but did not attend her own Grand Ole Opry birthday celebration. She had also been absent from another major industry event several months earlier. For someone whose career had been built around showing up, performing, and connecting with audiences, these absences became another part of the growing mystery. In March, she appeared at Dollywood and spoke more openly about how exhausted she had become. She described herself as worn down emotionally, spiritually, and physically after grieving for Carl and dealing with other difficulties in her life. She explained that she needed to rebuild herself from the inside out. Yet even after acknowledging how difficult the period had been, she reassured everyone that things were good and that she had not allowed the situation to stop her. That combination of honesty and reassurance reflected the Dolly Parton people had known for decades, someone willing to acknowledge pain, but also determined to keep moving forward. Beneath the smile, however, the story presents a woman who had spent so much of her strength caring for someone she loved that there was very little left for herself, according to the supplied narrative. The final piece of the story came during Dolly's reported last interview with People magazine. She explained that she had been dealing with health issues that she had neglected while looking after Carl. Importantly, the supplied text does not establish a specific medical diagnosis or confirmed cause of death, and it would be inappropriate to invent one. Instead, the emotional message about devotion, caregiving, sacrifice, and the personal cost of putting someone else's needs before your own. Carl Dean had been Dolly's husband and private companion for nearly 6 decades, living largely away from the spotlight while she traveled, performed, and built her career. When Alzheimer's began changing his life, Dolly reportedly devoted herself to being there for him. Caring for someone through a long illness can demand enormous emotional and physical energy, and caregivers can sometimes postpone their own needs because the person they love seems more important in the moment. That is the central message of this story. Dolly's silence was not portrayed as simple carelessness, but as the consequence of love and devotion. She continued giving while her own strength was running low. Her legacy, however, extends far beyond this difficult final chapter. From her humble beginnings to her music, philanthropy, business achievements, and connection with generations of fans. Dolly Parton created a legacy that is unlikely to disappear. If her music or her life has touched you, leave a tribute in the comments and share what Dolly Parton has meant to you. And for more stories about legendary personalities, unforgettable careers, and the moments behind the headlines, subscribe to Golden Fame News. Dolly Parton's story has always been bigger than music. She came from humble beginnings in the Smoky Mountains and transformed a childhood filled with hardship into one of the most remarkable careers in entertainment. For generations of fans, Dolly became a symbol of determination, kindness, humor, and strength. She could walk onto a stage covered in lights and rhinestones and make thousands of people feel as though she were singing directly to them. But behind that familiar smile was a private life that the public rarely saw. According to the story provided, the final period of Dolly's life was shaped not only by concerns about her own health, but also by the enormous emotional responsibility of caring for her husband, Carl Dean. As Carl's Alzheimer's disease progressed, Dolly reportedly devoted more and more of her attention to him. She had spent decades protecting their private relationship from the intense attention that came with fame, and she continued to keep the most difficult parts of their lives away from the cameras. Meanwhile, her own needs appear to have become less important. In September 2025, the story says that Dolly announced the postponement of her Las Vegas residency, explaining that she had been experiencing health challenges and would need several medical procedures. The announcement was carefully worded and did not reveal a specific diagnosis. To the public, it could have sounded like a temporary interruption in an otherwise unstoppable career. But the story suggests there was much more happening behind the scenes. Months of emotional strain, caregiving, exhaustion, and grief had begun taking a toll. Instead of focusing on herself, Dolly continued to focus on Carl. That decision reflects a deeply human side of her personality. The woman who had spent her entire career entertaining millions was now dedicating her energy to one person who mattered deeply to her. Her life had always been about giving songs, giving laughter, giving opportunities, giving to charitable causes, and giving comfort to people who needed it. During this final chapter, however, that generosity reportedly came at a personal cost. The signs were subtle at first, but as the months passed, they became increasingly difficult to ignore. Then came a series of moments that caused fans to look more closely what was happening. In October 2025, Dolly's sister Frida reportedly asked people to pray for Dolly. The request immediately worried fans because Dolly had spent so many years appearing strong and healthy in public. Instead of responding with fear or allowing the situation to become dramatic, Dolly answered in the humorous way that had become one of her trademarks. Her response reassured people and reminded everyone of the personality they had come to love. But behind the joke, the concern remained. Family members often notice changes that the public never sees, and Frida's request suggested that the situation had become serious enough to cause genuine worrying. A few months later, Dolly reached another major milestone, her 80th birthday. For an artist with such a legendary career, turning 80 should have been an enormous celebration. Fans, institutions, and fellow performers were ready to honor the occasion. Yet according to the supplied story, Dolly did not appear at her own Grand Ole Opry birthday celebration. That absence became especially significant because she had built a reputation for being dependable, hardworking, and willing to show up for the people who supported her. Her absence from other major events around the same period added to the growing pattern. Then, in March 2026, she appeared at Dollywood, the Tennessee theme park connected so closely with her name and legacy. For fans watching her return, seeing Dolly on stage again may have been comforting. She looked like the Dolly everyone remembered, but her words revealed something more vulnerable. She acknowledged that she had become exhausted from grieving Carl and dealing with other personal difficulties. She explained that she needed to restore herself emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Those words offered a rare glimpse behind the public image. Grief does not always arrive as one dramatic moment. Sometimes it builds slowly, especially when someone has spent months or years caring for a loved one. There can be exhaustion, uncertainty, sleepless nights, difficult decisions, and a constant feeling that your own problems can wait another day. Dolly had spent so much time being strong for Carl that she may not have realized how much strength she herself had been using, even when she spoke about being worn down. However, she still tried to reassure her audience. That instinct, to comfort everyone else even while she was struggling, was part of what made her so beloved.